Boys and girls, children of all ages, I guess AMARAN has decided to completely blow the budget light category out of the water. Look at this new Halo series and check out the prices on these lights. We have a 60 watt bicolor, a 100 watt, 200 watt, 300 watt, and 600 watt at extremely reasonable prices. In fact, you could get 4 of these lights, including the 300 and the 200, for less than $850. Or you could get all 5 lights, including a 600 watt light, for about $1,300 USD. To have this amount of power for your studio for those prices, I think is fantastic. And they are all full Bowens mount, including these 2 right here. These little hockey pucks still take a full Bowens mount. Look at this. This is the smallest light, the 60 watt with a 90 centimeter softbox on. No problem at all. They have a little reinforced Bowens mount right there, so even a bigger softbox can be handled on these little guys. Now, of course, for disclosures, this is not an unbiased review. AMARAN is sponsoring this video, so consider it a showcase for these new lights to tell you they are on the market, and I will tell you as much as I can about them. As you can see, these lights are absolutely tiny, especially these 2, but look, even the 600 watt light, that is a really small light. I am amazed at the power and the efficiency in such tiny little packages. These things are also so well built. These are all metal around here. There's a bit of plastic, but they are mostly metal, including the yokes. And these 2, while they have a lot more plastic, they also have a metal stand and handle here. Once again, pretty surprising. And I will put all of these lights up as my studio lights so that you can see them in action later in the video. But first, I will talk about what each one will bring you. Many of you are aware that AMARAN recently released the Ray series, and this is a little more of a high-end series. These are full RGB lights. All of these Halo series are just bicolor lights. These ones have every color under the rainbow. They also introduced a new color engine. They have an indigo in there as well, and that gives you the most accurate skin tones you can get in any kind of price category close to this one. So these ones are geared towards a more no-nonsense budget category for people who want to set up a studio. Let's talk about the little guys first. They are little in size, but not in power. This is the 60X, and that one is the 100X. You see the front element right here, and you see how simple and small these things are. 2 little knobs on the back. Even a dullard like me can use it. A little release knob here for the softbox. Full size Bowens mount softbox. And very importantly is the mount that they give you with these lights. Sometimes when you have some of the smaller, thinner budget lights, you can get some problems when you are mounting them time and time again. You can get some stress points and things not going so great. This mount that they come with is full metal. It is just rock solid. It goes in to these lights. It has a little pin connector right here, and then it is plenty sturdy. As I showed you in the beginning, you can put a 90 centimeter softbox on it. Generally speaking, these little lights, people will put smaller softboxes than that, but I'm a little bit of a loony, and I like to have a big 90 centimeter softbox in my studio, and I put it over there. In the demonstration, I will put that 90 centimeter softbox as my key light on this guy. What's also cool is that this full metal mount has an umbrella holder. Let me set that down right there. So if you are really trying to save money on a budget, grab yourself some cheap diffusion like this. This little umbrella costs about $10, and then you put that through the umbrella hole. There you go. You are good to go. $119, about $10, less than $130. You get a nice soft light. Actually does produce a nice soft light. Look at this. I'm like Mary Poppins over here. Of course, all 5 lights are going to have that modern AMARAN menu system, which I think is really intuitive, very easy to use, not to mention their app. I'll show you that in a bit. You have an app that connects all of these lights plus all of your other AMARAN lights, and you don't even need to plug them in to connect it to the app because it has a little NFC chip here. I love that. Click on your CCT here, and then you have your power, which goes from 0 to 100, obviously, and it is linear, so 50% of the power setting on the light is 50% of the power. I certainly prefer that, and right now you can see it is nice and warm because it goes from 2700 Kelvin all the way to 6500 Kelvin. And with the knobs, you can go down in granular steps, 1, 2, 3, 4, but you can also spin it quickly and then get big chunks down. So if you wanted to get to 100 quickly, you just go really fast, and it goes to 100. I'm going to turn that down because it is really bright. I'll give you some of the metrics as we get into the specs. But speaking of specs, I will say that these lights are extremely accurate, not just to themselves, but in general. The color temperature, if you are at 5600, you measure 5600, you can go from 1% all the way to 100%. I did that at every single percentage, and right from 1 to 100, there was almost no variance at all in the color temperature. It stayed within 100 Kelvin. That was extremely impressive. The only outlier was this 100X. I did notice it ran a little cooler down at the very low percentages, but I have written AMARAN and I have told them about it. So if it's not a thing with just one of my early production units, then of course a firmware update could easily fix that. And since the 60X is pretty much perfect, I have no worries about that. You have your power button here, you have your back button to go into the main menu, and then you can see all of the things, the CCT and the effects. Let's see what they have for effects. It's all the standard effects that you could get with a bicolor light. Not going to be as fancy as an RGB. Your fireworks aren't going to have all kinds of different colors, but you can do some different lighting effects if you want. Bluetooth, obviously, for connectivity, and then you also have your studio setting. That is, if you want to leave your lights plugged in, connected to power, let's say, and you have all your lights up on one switch, you can turn that switch off. Everything will shut off, but if you're in studio mode on your lights, they will be ready to go when you turn the power back on. A lot of people like that, saves a lot of time. I got to do that in this studio. Just hook up everything to one board and then turn my lights on and off. Then I can put these up, have studio ready to go. You have your language here and you have DMX. These things, they aren't DMX capable right out of the box, but you can buy an adapter from AMARAN, and all 5 of these lights can have DMX capabilities for a really low price. I like that feature. With the fan mode, you have 2 different modes. You have silent and smart. Smart means the fan will kick on whenever it needs to. Silent means you won't have any fan at all, but that does limit your power. So on this light, it's limited to 15% of your total power. So if you want no fan kicking on ever, you get 15% of this light. Now, normally I absolutely love that. I'm glad they included it, but really on these 5 lights, you don't need a silent mode, at least in my not so humble opinion. These things at full blast, I don't think there's any mic that would ever pick them up. So right now I am running the 100X at full power. The fans are going as loud as they go, and they're rated for something like 28 decibels, which is lower than my room tone. So you're probably not going to hear it, but I'll stay quiet so you can listen anyway. Now remember, the microphone is right there, so I don't think there's any way any mic is going to pick up fan noise from this guy. Now this one here is the 600 watt. It's the loudest of these lights. It has the biggest fan, and I think it's the most audible of all of them, but I still don't think it's any cause for anyone to have to eliminate any sound in post. Even if the microphone's about 1.5 feet away, like this one, I'll be quiet now. On the 60 watt light, you have a USB-C slot for power and another USB-C slot if you want to add that DMX connection. It does come with a mains power cord. Has a little 65 watt power brick attached to a right angle USB-C cord. The 100X comes with a bigger 100 watt brick because it requires more power. You can still use a lower powered brick or a lower powered battery for the 100X, but it will give you a warning that you're not going to get the full output out of this guy. It will cap you at whatever percentage it needs to, depending on how much power you're supplying to it. But of course, if you just want to plug it into mains right here, you have no issues with that whatsoever. It's got a little barrel connector here and the USB-C on the side there. If you can see that, that is for the DMX connector on this guy. And fantastically, it also doubles as a power port for the 100X. If you want to use USB power using something like the AMARAN Peak battery, I can get full juice out of this guy, no issues. I left my old man glasses in the shot because I can't see anything up close because I'm old. Now let's move on to the bigger boys. Still not very big. This is a 300 watt light. Seriously, look at that. 200 watt. Cannot believe it. Anyway, these things are exceptionally well built. That really surprised me. I thought these things would be a very lightweight plastic, but there is some plastic around the edges here, but it is mostly metal all around, including, most importantly, the yoke. You have a metal handle and a metal holder. Of course, they still have a little umbrella holder here on the bottom. Can you see that? And you see this little unique shape. They told me that is for carrying it around. They made a little finger holder, so you don't have to have an extra handle and carry more bulk. Very cool. You can just press this button and reposition the metal handle if you want. You can just tighten that down. This is just surprisingly well made, especially when you look at the price. You have your heat dispersion holes on both sides and a big old fan in the middle, which is one of the reasons these things are so quiet. When you plug it in and turn it on, you will see a very similar menu system indeed, and you can scroll through just like you can on the 100X or the 60X, go into all of your functions and handle the menu like you would any of the new AMARAN lights. Having consistency with all of the menus and the app as well, of course, makes it very easy to continue to stay in the AMARAN ecosystem. Personally, that is how they get me, and I'm sure that's how they get a lot of people, because you know AMARAN are going to provide really great support. They're going to be around when they introduce new lights. They're not just going to ignore their old lights. It will all be integrated together, mix and match, keep your production going. I'm wearing my specs to talk about the specs. Now, AMARAN's website does a really great job of breaking down the specs for each of the lights. Like, for instance, the 60X they are saying is 3270 lux at 1 meter. But there is something to remember here, and that is beam angle. If you look at the AMARAN Ray Series bare bulb versus this guy, you might think the 60-watt Ray Series light is brighter if you are measuring bare bulb in the center, because it has a more narrow beam, so you have your lumens concentrated. It might look like it is a brighter light, but this one has a wider beam angle, which will fill your softbox actually a little bit better. And when you put a softbox on this light versus the AMARAN Ray 60-watt light, you will see this one is about 25% brighter. That is what I measured here in the studio with my meter, and the 60-watt light from the Ray Series is a really bright RGB light, but because this one's not RGB, it's only bicolor, you get that extra brightness in there. So once again, amazing value for money, an even brighter light when you're going through a softbox than the fantastic Ray Series light. Now, an area the halo lights are not quite as good as the Ray Series lights is when it comes to SSI daylight. So at 5600, in terms of its close approximation to the sun, the Ray Series are going to score better with that new light engine. Whereas the Halo Series, they will score around 74. And that is definitely on the high end of regular bicolor lights. It's really only the AMARAN Ray Series and some of the aputure lights that have that new type of color engine that get you more of an approximation of the sun's light versus these guys. But when it comes to regular lights in my studio, 95% of my videos have been made without that new color engine. So to have a 74 in SSI is certainly more than acceptable for me and what I do in here. The things I really value in a studio light, number one, is price. Number two is form factor. I want it to be as small as possible because I have a tiny little studio space here. And because it's a small space, I also want my lights to be quiet. And these are very quiet as well. And the last factor for me is ease of use. These are very easy to use, and they have that fantastic app, so I can control them all from the comfort of my chair. I don't like getting up much. And now let's change out my studio lights for the Halo series. And in fact, I am going to use the smallest light as my main big key light to see if the 60 bicolor light can handle it. Look at how impressive this is. As you can see on the app, this is only at 23% brightness for a 60-watt light using my 90 centimeter softbox. By the way, holding super strong, no worries there at all. Look at how much I can turn this up. There you go. That is at 100%. We certainly don't need that. Let me turn it back down to 23% on my app. Oh, I love this app, so easy to use, and I can just set up my light right there. In fact, let me show you on the app how easy it is to add the other lights. I will go to a new NFC device. Now you see, I just added the 200X with NFC. The thing is not even plugged in, but what is plugged in is the 600. So let's click that on so I can manipulate it with the app. And as you can see here, I can move the CCT from 2700 to 6500. I can turn it on or off quickly with this, or just adjust. But look at how bright that is in the background. 600 watts for less than $500. Great. I was thinking that maybe I could get one of these things for my key light, and then I'll put one of the other lights as my kicker, a small light, the 60 watt or the 100. But really, all I would need is a few of these 60 watt bicolor lights for most of my studio. The RGB, yeah, I'll still leave that for the Ray series, but right now my main lights are just bicolor lights anyway, so this is a really great solution for me. But I was going to tell you what would I do if I was starting all over. And what I would do is get this 200 watt light as my main light, because you never know when you might want some extra power, and it's still quite affordable and still really compact and small. And then I would buy a 60X as well for my kicker light, and I would buy another 60X probably for my hair light, and then I would get an AMARAN Ray series to do a little of the RGB in the background. So there you have it, very quiet, very small, well-built lights at an extremely attractive price. I think these things are going to be massive sellers for AMARAN, but what do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Which of these Halo series lights would you choose and why? And we can have a nice little discussion about it. Thanks for watching this. We'll talk to you again soon. Okay, bye-bye.